This is the Literary License Podcast with your hosts, Vicky Ray, John Wilson, and Keith Shorgo. Discussing book to screen and everything in between. Coming at you from the UK and USA.
They keep it real.
I know, I look vaguely familiar.
Yes.
You feel you've seen me somewhere before.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how I have that effect on people. It's something about my face.
It's a nice face.
You think so?
I wouldn't say it if I didn't.
Oh, you're that type.
What type?
Honest.
Not really.
Good, because honest women frighten me.
Why?
I don't know, somehow they seem to put me at a disadvantage.
Because you're not honest with them?
Exactly.
Like that business about the 7 parking tickets?
What I mean is, the moment I meet an attractive woman, I have to start pretending I've no desire to make love to her.
What makes you think you have to conceal it?
She might find the idea objectionable.
Then again, she might not.
Somebody start the bidding at $750, please.
How do we know it's not a fake? It looks like a fake.
Well, one thing we know, you're no fake. You're a genuine idiot.
Thanks.
Chicago looking for this George Kaplan man you've been telling me about. Because you'll be picked up by the police the moment you show your face.
Such a nice face, too.
Now, don't you think it'll be a better idea if you stayed in my hotel room while I located him for you, brought him to you?
Can't let you get involved. It's too dangerous.
I'm a big girl.
Yeah, and in all the right places, too.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. You know that, don't you?
Yes.
I mean, we've hardly met.
That's right.
How do I know you aren't a murderer?
You don't.
I mean, maybe you're planning to murder me right here tonight.
Shall I?
Please do.
No, I do.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and today we'll be discussing the 1959 classic North by Northwest, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. This is our last Alfred Hitchcock episode. As we exit season 2.
Oh,
before we get started, let's find out who's with us. Of course, we have Vicky Ray with us. Say hello, Vicky.
Hey, people.
And John Wilson's back with us. Hello, John.
Why, hello, folks.
And before we get started, let's find out what each of us has been up to. So, Vicky, what have you been up to in the last week?
Well, just dealing with the heat. It's been 100 degrees like every day. It's supposed to be 102 today.
But no, I binge watched Glow, and I'm really sad because I binge watched it. Now I don't have Glow to watch because I love Glow. It's on Netflix.
I have one episode left, so don't say anything.
I won't tell you. It's great. I won't say
I have to say, this season 3 of Glow is probably their best season.
it is fantastic.
It was so well mapped out and so well drawn out. So.
I love Glow. Watched the first part of it. I waited 2 years because I didn't want to wait for 2 years to actually have to wait to see the second part, which is coming out September 6th. And I really enjoyed it because they stuck to the novel a whole lot more. And Pennywise, as much as I love Tim Curry being Pennywise, this clown is so malevolent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, he's just freaky. And I watched this movie called I, Dragon. I believe it was on Amazon. I thought it was going to be stupid. I hate reading subtitles, but it was Russian. And it was one of the most beautifully cinematic sleeper movies I have ever seen. It was just it was pretty. That's all I could say. And Wentworth, finally binge watched the whole last season of Wentworth. I think it's better than Black is the New Black or whatever. I like it because I don't know if it's Australian and more raw, but I just love it. It's actually good. That was on Netflix as well. What about you guys?
What about yourself, John? What have you been up to?
I have been trying to enjoy the end of summer, which just makes me sad.
I know.
It's been a little bit quieter at work. So I caught up on Orange is the New Black, which I didn't really care for the ending, but I guess it was meant to be very melancholy because of the prison system anyway. So I'll take that for what it is. As you were saying, Glow, I'm catching up with Glow. I have one more episode left of that. I saw this movie, which kind of snuck by me. I saw a trailer a while ago, Greta. So it's with Chloe Grace how do you pronounce her last name? Moretz. And then Isabella Hupper. Oh my God. It's such a great movie. I would suggest it's called Greta.
On Netflix?
It's I watched it on Netflix, I think. Yeah, I think it was on Netflix. It was either Netflix or Amazon. Don't watch the trailer because the trailer gives away way too much, but I would say it's kind of like a single white female meets Misery. So it's really interesting.
Total mayhem and
and it's there's points where you just get tricked. There's just like really crazy moments that happen in it. And then the other one I just saw too in theaters was After the Wedding with Julianne Moore and Michelle Williams. Such a great movie. The ending was a little melancholy, I guess. But it was such a great movie, and there's a bunch of moments where you're like, oh wow, this is shocking because you don't know what's going on and what's happening, and as things are getting revealed, you're just like, oh wow, okay. But great movie.
Sounds great.
And myself, basically, I finished Glow. Excellent season 3. Can't wait for season 4.
No, I can't sing the praises enough for Glow. I just find it's a fantastic series. I love it. I started watching
Mindhunter as well, which just came on Netflix.
Oh yeah, season 2, right?
Yes, and not to give anything away, but the guy who plays Charles Manson in it is fantastic.
Nice.
What movie? How did I miss this? What is it?
It's a series, Mindhunter.
Yeah, and David Fincher actually directed every single episode, which is quite interesting.
Wow, that's impressive.
I only got 3 more to watch. I started watching it last night and was up to 5 o'clock in the morning watching the first 6 episodes.
I don't know how you survive with no sleep.
And
Never sleep.
but the interesting thing about it is that if you refer back to our Helter Skelter episode and some of the theories that we came up with, they're matching our theories in the series, which is quite interesting.
They must listen to us. They know.
So,
we know that they know that we know.
And then, I'm still, catching up on bits. Still watching Pose, which is brilliant. It keeps going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I love that series. Next week is a finale for this season. It's just such a great series.
Well, did you see the last episode?
The beach one?
Yeah, that was lovely.
It was such a lovely episode. It's such a surreal type show because it's the bond that these women have and how you just kind of see the other side of life, and when you see like the side that's like the ritzy side versus what they kind of go through to kind of live within society and how they all interconnect, and it's such a great show.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's probably got some of the best soundtrack in the world.
Really?
And best one-liner is like, what is Electra? She always says the best lines where she's like, "Oh, are we talking about Dark Hasselhoff again?"
You guys always watch the stuff that I don't know how I miss it.
Oh, you would love it. It's so great.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's it called again for our listeners?
Pose.
Pose.
And the first season's on Netflix, so that's on there. And then second season's ending, so it'll probably be on Netflix in another 5 months or so.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's done by Ryan Murphy, who does American Horror Story and
okay.
Episodes. And then I finally finished watching the Bob Fosse, Gwen Verdon series, that Ryan Murphy did, The Feud. That's like their
I love Feud. Yeah.
It's okay. Michelle Williams is fantastic as Gwen Verdon, and I can't remember who the guy is. Award winner, but who plays Bob Fosse. It's kind of good, but it does suffer from the Ryan Murphy problems that Ryan Murphy shows happen, that they'll do like 10 episodes or 10 or 12 episodes, and then you get like 2 episodes in the middle of it. It's just like it just drags.
Yeah.
So it did suffer from that. The performances are fantastic, and I imagine they'll probably win some awards, but it really didn't have enough material to go through the episodes that there was, and both people come across as total assholes. So it's just like, Bob Fosse is probably one of the world's greatest choreographers and one of the greatest movie directors of all that jazz and Cabaret and Lenny. And it just doesn't show either one of them in a very good light.
And that's the thing, is you have to have some redeemable qualities, because otherwise it's like, why do you care at all? So
yeah, but besides that, I've just been living my life and watching my reality TV programs, and I've caught up with The Hills, The New Beginning on MTV. So yeah, it was quite interesting, because what makes it interesting is because Brandon Jenner's on it, of course, because he was on the original series, and he talks about his father. And he says something quite interesting, that when the show's been off the air for 12 years now, so they brought everyone back for a
reunion, right?
It's like a reunion series, and got Spencer and Heidi and everyone back. But what he was sitting there saying is that he got married 4 years ago, and when Bruce met his wife, he goes, "Oh, Caitlin, that's a nice name." And so he took his son's wife's new name for his name.
Oh,
Caitlin.
Shut up. No. That's hysterical.
Yeah. But but he doesn't have they don't have a good relationship or anything like that, because Bruce apparently was never much of a father, sort of thing, which is quite sad. But what's quite interesting is Brendan's mom, who's also on the series, was sitting there and saying that the reason why their marriage broke up 26 years ago is because he was transsexual at that time, and that's the reason why their marriage broke up. So it's quite interesting. So you think that, okay, yeah, it was something that happened recently, but apparently he's going.
No, I was going to say he had to have been going through that in his mind for a long period of time. So yeah, it
does question why he married the Kardashian, but at the same time, it's it is what it is. But it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting to watch these people that you watched the first time around, like 12 years later.
Yeah,
and see how much face work they've had done. So.
I kind of want to see that. I want to see Beverly Hills 90210.
I've been watching it.
Yeah, I have to watch it because
watch it.
It just looks interesting, especially the premise behind it. I was like, it's actually.
What is the premise? That's my question.
The premise basically is the first episode. They've done 2 episodes. The third
right.
And basically, it's them now. But the thing is, they're not actually doing Beverly Hills 90210. And they got Andrea Zuckerman back as well. She's in it. She actually looks the best out of all of them. But
I think Shannon Doherty looks fantastic too.
Yeah, she looks okay, though. It'd be interesting to see how long she lasts, because she's always a bitch who gets fired from everything.
Right.
But the whole premise behind the show is that they all come together for to do a reunion panel show where they celebrate, because it's been 20 years since it's been on the air, and they all get arrested as themselves, and basically it's like a meta version of themselves. So Jason Priestley's playing Jason Priestley, Tori Spelling's playing Tori Spelling, and then they decide they're going to do a reboot of the show, and it's about how they're going to get the reboot onto TV.
How are they trying to get Dylan up? Dylan, wait, was that?
No, he's dead.
Okay.
You know, that's the reason why Shannon Doherty came back, is because of Luke Perry's death.
So they did kind of
She
put
was
that
gonna
in
come
there,
back.
kind of, sort of, or
Yeah, they mentioned it. Yeah, it's like their lives now.
Apparently they're like almost heightened versions of themselves, like really extreme versions of themselves.
now
And
they're
so
bigger assholes.
yeah, I mean, it's meant to be like kind of, because I think Tori Spelling is the one who wants to try to get everyone together, but it's almost like from a standpoint of like, hey, you know, this would be a great career opportunity, you know, because she like at one point, like a lot of people are
the map for a while.
Her reality TV program.
correct. Yeah.
And you got like Ian Zierling talking about like, oh, it's like I got a chance to do another Sharknado movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I know. Oh my God.
Because he just now did the zombie monsoon. What is it? Zombie something? Like, I'm like, oh my God, these
I
movies.
like the Sharknado series. Don't be. I think they're
No, but I'm saying there's a new one that he's doing that's literally, it's like zombies and a monsoon or a typhoon or something. It's, yeah.
but it even goes to the point where it's like the one who played Kelly in it, you know, she's been divorced 3 times.
Yeah.
In real life, and it talks about, you know, she's getting her 3rd divorce is coming through, which basically she was getting a divorce as they were filming this program. So
Yeah.
it's quite. I mean, it's fun, it's interesting but you know, you do see how they've aged, and it's kind of startling. Well, like Stations Priestley, how much he's aged, and you're kind of like taken back by it a little bit, but it's enjoyable. I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire, but it's doing well in the ratings, so people are watching.
I'll have to pop in and watch one or two of the episodes.
It reminds me of the show The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow. I love Lisa Kudrow. And so the fact that it's as if she's making fun of her, like it's her playing a character of someone who is a childhood actress or a famous, you know, ensemble cast actress. So like as she was on Friends, Valerie was an ensemble actress, and how once the show ended, her career just kind of was like, you know, like. So it's interesting that we'd take that route, because I love that.
Well, The Comeback would also have Miriam Balak in it, isn't it, from Blossom?
Yeah.
And she'd come in and she'd be like, because she was going to college at the time. It's just like, and she'd walk in and she goes, oh God, it's Blossom. Blossom. Because aren't you supposed to be in college?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's interesting. So I've been quite enjoying it. So before we go into the actual discussion of North by Northwest, we have a special PSA about the shark finning trade by Eli Roth. We're going to let them talk to you about the shark finning trade and how you can stop it and get involved. And we'll be back after a word from the shark people.
Hi, I'm Eli Roth. And I'm underwater cinematographer Joe Romero. We're here on behalf of our friends at Shark Allies. There's a very important moment happening right now in Florida legislature, and we need your support.
Florida imports and exports more shark fins than any place in the country.
And there's a bill on the table to ban it completely. Shark finning is illegal in the U.S., but the shark fin trade is not. It's only illegal in 12 states.
Florida will be the 13th state out of all 50 to adopt the no shark fin trade policy.
Even though the shark finning is illegal, the trade is actually driving more illegal activity. If we eliminate the trade, we can eliminate finning.
We lose an estimated 100 million sharks a year. It's 11,000 sharks an hour and 3 sharks a second. No animal can keep up with that. That's mass extinction.
Go here and sign this petition and let your voice be heard. And follow our friends at Shark Allies. Whether you are from Florida or not, we need your help.
Let's ban the shark fin trade completely.
Hello, welcome back. So make sure that you do go into signing the petition to help the shark trade to stop this happening. As we were saying before, that the sharks have been diminished by 97% now.
That's just too much.
Wow.
Sign that petition.
And basically, it's very inhumane what they're doing. They cut off the fins of the sharks and then put the sharks back in the water, and then they drown. So it's very imperative that if you want your children to know what sharks are in the future, you might want to get involved with this to help stop this at the moment, because sharks are an endangered species. And outlining from what Hollywood's interpretation of sharks are, remember that is fantasy. We're looking at the reality of sharks, and you want to help save these species. If you want to get involved, please click on the links in our show notes, and they will be on our website and across our various channels. So this brings us to North by Northwest, which is a 1959 Alfred Hitchcock classic. Now, the reason why North by Northwest was done, because by this time they wanted to make the perfect Alfred Hitchcock film.
Yep.
And by this time, all Alfred Hitchcock films had certain things that they had involved with it. They would, up until this point, we would see landmarks being used in an Alfred Hitchcock. We also would deal with the everyman, how the everyman would be caught in a strange situation. We have the murder plots and everything like this. And so when when Ernest Lehman decided he wanted to write a film for Alfred Hitchcock, he wanted to make the perfect Alfred Hitchcock film. And in this, of course, we have North by Northwest. North by Northwest is one of the greatest films of all time and is listed, and it's, of course, from 1959. And it's also culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant in the United States Library of Congress for the National Film Registry. Alfred Hitchcock would consider that North by Northwest was his favorite film of all the films that he filmed, and it's also considered one of the best Alfred Hitchcock films. That if you've never seen one, if you want to see an Alfred Hitchcock film, see this one first. So
it is his best, I think. I loved it. The
So, Vicky, is there anything you want to add about the making of Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest?
Well, yes. The movie would not have happened without Bernard Herrmann. He's supposedly a legendary film composer, and he was a Hitchcock collaborator since 55, I believe. And that was the trouble with Harry, is the one that he introduced Hitchcock to. And that's when he met Earnest Lehman, thinking they'd hit it off. They did. Apparently, they were working on something else when they decided to do North by Northwest. And I guess that is how those two showed up and got together on that. And the funny part, I thought, in the making of this movie was Cary Grant through the whole movie had no idea what was going on. He thought it was a horrible script, and he said he'd done a third of the picture, and he still could not figure out what was going on in the movie. And Hitchcock really appreciated that, because actually the character in the movie has no idea of what's going on in the movie. So through the whole film, they said that he flip-flopped right up until the premiere. And he was really pleased because it was received well, even though throughout the whole movie, I guess when you're looking at Cary Grant, he really actually has no effing clue what's going on through the whole movie. And he was just doing his lines. So I thought that was kind of funny. And they had shot some of the plot secretly. And apparently that when they were at Mount Rushmore, they had to make their own Mount Rushmore, because they weren't being, what's the word I want to use, reverent enough when they were using the original location. So there was all kinds of weird stuff that happened when this movie was being made. What about you, John? What do you got?
Talking about Liam, he was there's like moments he was talking about in an interview how they went through different ideations and like just trying to determine where like the plot of the story and where things were going. And one of the things I thought was funny was about a tornado. So basically the whole concept of the plane coming after him, and like actually that scene was conceptualized as a tornado. And basically Lehman was like, but they're trying to kill him. How are they going to kill him with a working of a cyclone? Like, so that idea obviously changed into something that was a plane that was more feasible. Cause I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, why? I mean, it shows you the breadth of Hitchcock's mind, because at one point even talked about this film, or had an idea of a film where it was him inside of Lincoln's nose.
Abraham Lincoln's nose.
So like just these concepts, this film came from the mind of a man who literally had the main protagonist of the story in a president's nose in the monument.
The Department of the Interior weren't happy with Hitchcock at all. They wanted to preserve the sanctity of what they considered a shrine in Mount Rushmore. He had permission to use the site, but he promised not to depict acts of violence, like there was gunplay and all that other stuff. And they were not supposed to be running all over the president's faces, but just respectfully on the head of the monuments.
Yeah, by the way,
their own.
And that sort of hinged that on the monument should hinge, because the story was a man who sneezed in Lincoln's nose. I mean, that's literally the title of what this was at one point. So it's kind of hysterical.
His patent or whatever Well, they said there's a permit on the grounds for patent desecration. He had to make his own Mount Rushmore because he was desecrating the shrine. It's sort of like the Alamo. You don't do that shit down here in Texas on the Alamo. So.
I also just love how this was filmed in so many different locations. So it actually has on Wikipedia. Yeah, it has a list of all the different locations, like the Plaza Hotel, the old Westbury Gardens, the United Nations headquarters, like Grand Central Terminal, like
either though.
Yeah, but it's just amazing how there's so many different shots in this film.
That's why they called it North. They said, why did they call it North by Northwest? Because it started in New York, it went to Chicago, and then it went to North Dakota, I think.
No, he wanted to use an idiom that doesn't really exist. So, like, North by Northwest isn't a true on a compass. It's not. Right. It doesn't exist. So, he wanted to use something that sort of it already catches you in a false reality.
I mean, I guess some of the other interesting things is that when the film was done, the MGM. This is the only film that Alfred Hitchcock did for MGM. He never did another film for them before or after. And they wanted to cut it by 15 minutes. So Alfred Hitchcock went to his agent and checked over his contract, and they gave him a final cut that this couldn't do anything about it. So he's able to win that. The only thing that had to be redone at all was they had to redub Eva Marie's line where she said, I never make love on an empty stomach. And that had to be changed to I never discuss love on an empty stomach because the censors would have found that too risque for his time.
I thought it was still
but even though you knew what they're gonna do, so it wasn't like one of those things where you're kind of like, oh, they're gonna go play chess in her room, you know. It's like, hey, come to my room so we can talk about sex.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was not, I wouldn't call it a lurid, elusive kind of scene, but you knew where it was going.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And, and even at the end of the movie, when they got married, he snuck that train going into the tunnel thing, like, how Hitchcock likes to do. So you knew what that was. So
because he was a twisted, dirty old man.
And I love how he sneaks stuff in his movies like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess another thing to show what a great man Alfred Hitchcock was and how respected of. He's one of the only directors able to film at the United Nations.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he was allowed to go in, was he?
But you're not even allowed to film outside of it.
You're not allowed to film anywhere near the building.
But I think there's somewhere where I read.
And they gave him special permission to be able to do that. And that shot with him looking down from the top of the building downwards onto the parking lot, that wasn't a set or anything like that. That was actually at the United Nations building. So they did give him a little bit of leeway, which is quite unheard of for his time, or even now.
Which, though, it looks like a model. That's what's so weird, because it doesn't look real. It looks, the juxtaposition of this film is just one of my personal opinion is like one of the best things, because you kind of see things from different angles. That one in itself, it looks like a model.
Yeah, I thought it was a model as well. It's only from when I was watching a documentary about the making of this film that I realized it wasn't. It's like, oh, maybe because it looks perfect.
Apparently.
I
think it was also because everything was so landscaped, like all of that, because it's like this circular pattern that's on the ground, and then even the little taxis. I was at one point, I'm like, but the taxis look real, and the person that's walking looks real. So how did they do this? So he did a great job in shooting that shot and making it look not real.
Cinematographer. The one fact that I thought was kind of unusual, and I thought it was Cary Grant, because you figured he'd be really PO'd that it took longer than what it was supposed to when the movie was made. And because Cary Grant said, the longer the better, because in addition to, he got like a $450,000 salary. I think that's equivocates to $3 million in 2016 US dollars. Yeah. And he got a share of the profits, and he got paid $5,000, and they adjusted that to $41,000 per day for every day the production ran over schedule. So eventually it lasted for 78 days, shooting did, and it come out to $390,000, which was $3.2 million in our money. So Cary Grant was
compensated for his overtime.
For his overtime. He got some great overtime.
So before we go into the actual commercial break in the trailer, Vicky, do you want to give us a brief synopsis of the film?
Yeah. North by Northwest is a tale of mistaken identity, when an innocent man pursued across the United States by agents of a mysterious organization who are trying to prevent him from blocking their plan to smuggle out microfilm which contains government secrets. And the rest is history.
So what we're going to do is cut to a commercial break and a word from our sponsors and the film trailer. And we'll be back after a word from our sponsor.
Morning face. You get it when you don't sleep well. This is what happened to Linda.
Morning, guys.
Good morning. Ah, what is that thing?
It's me, Linda.
Oh my God, it talks! Run!
No, it's me, Linda from HR.
It looks hungry! Save the children! Save them! Stay back! I've got mace!
Ow! That went in my eyes!
Quit moving!
It's called beauty sleep for a reason. And there's never been a better time to get some.
Get 20% off IKEA Sultan mattresses. IKEA, love your home.
Hello?
What's your favorite scary movie?
I have a bunch of favorite movies. I watch them all on Shudder.com for only $4.99 a month.
That's a scary low price.
But if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Scream.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the only streaming service that lets me watch hundreds of horror movies on demand.
I'll be right back.
Hello? Hello? Hello, are you gonna subscribe? Hello?
Go to Shudder.com to subscribe. If you dare.
Oh, can we take a cab into Thornhill?
What, for 2 blocks?
You're late and I'm tired.
You know, that's your trouble, Maggie. You don't eat properly. All right. Here, taxi. I look heavyish to you.
What?
I feel heavyish. Put a note on my desk in the morning. Think thin.
Think thin.
What's that supposed to be?
Car's waiting outside. You will walk between us saying nothing.
What are you talking about?
Let's go.
And what the devil is all this about? Why was I brought here?
Games? Must we? My secretary is a great admirer of your methods, Mr. Kaplan.
I told you, I'm not Kaplan, whoever he is.
Do you intend to cooperate with us? I'd like a simple yes or no.
A simple no.
A pleasant journey, sir.
You see, they try to kill me. Well, I mean, after all, Your Honor, would I make up such a story?
That is precisely what we're intending to find out, Mr. Thornhill.
Well, she seemed to think I'm Kaplan. I wonder if I look like Kaplan. Do you know this man? You saw the newspapers. My fingerprints were on the knife. I'm a car thief, a drunk driver, and I murdered a man for revenge. I wouldn't have a chance. Tell me, why are you so good to me?
Shall I climb up and tell you why? How do I know you aren't a murderer?
You don't. Apparently, the only performance that'll satisfy you is when I play dead.
Your very next role.
You know, Edmund, you listen to me. I'm an advertising man, not a red herring. I've got a job, a secretary, a mother, 2 ex-wives, and several bartenders dependent upon me. And I don't intend to disappoint them all by getting myself slightly killed. Oops. I don't like the games you play, Professor.
War is hell, Mr. Thornhill. Even when it's a cold one. Is it 1 to 15, up 11?
And now, what little drama are we here for today?
What happened to the first 2 marriages?
Well, my wives divorced me.
Why?
Well, I think they said I led too dull a life.
Mr. Kaplan, we've had just about enough of you.
We're on top of the monument.
Planes, dust, and crops where there ain't no crop.
Good night, Mr. Thornhill.
Good night, sweetie.
Amazon. Oops, wrong Amazon. Although we both contain an array of diversity, the rainforest with all of its animals and us with all of our products, come check us over today and find all the products you need quickly and efficiently. And buy it with 1 click. And now you can even use us to donate to your favorite charities using Amazon Smile. Amazon Smile is worth your while. Come check us out today.
We are one planet. We share one extraordinary home. We are millions of wonders, but we are all one world. If we only get one chance to save our planet, to protect it for the next generation, then we have to take it. This is our chance. This is our fight. For our planet, for our home, for all of us. Join WWF today.
Hello, welcome back to Literary License Podcast, and we're discussing North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock. So, John, what are your thoughts on North by Northwest?
I have never seen this movie. Shut up. They're like, what? No, but I have never, from a film student, I've never seen this movie. And I thought I did. At one point, I think because the iconic scene where he's running from the plane, it's about to hit him. At one point, I was like, I'm watching this film going, wait, I have never seen this film. And it's even though it's a long movie, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, it doesn't feel long. There's such movement that goes throughout the film, even from the very start where, Roger Thornhill is coming into lobby, and then he gets pulled by these two guys and he's in the car. Like, it's so fast and quick pace in that sense that you just keep kind of moving along. And I just appreciate the biggest part about it is the cinematography of the actual film and how Hitchcock just does it again. And there's so many ways and angles. I do agree that this is probably one of the best Hitchcock style films because it kind of pulls in all these elements of what he's done in the past, that he's some of the stylistics of Rebecca or some of the stylistics of even Psycho, and how the looks and the camera angles and the getting a close up on a person's face and the connection between the two, the Thornhill and the goons, if you will. I just really appreciate the film and his style. And so if you're ever looking to emulate or stylistically approach a film and you want to do it right, watch this film. And you want to, emulate Hitchcock, watch this film.
I'm so glad they got Cary Grant though for the lead. I guess James Stewart wanted the lead in this, and because he been in 4 Hitchcock films before this.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be North by Northwest to be his 5th with Hitchcock, but he loved the film, but just didn't think he was debonair enough to pull up what Cary Grant pulled up. I don't think Jimmy Stewart probably would have been a good choice for this.
I think what's quite interesting is this is one of Cary Grant's last films as a leading man. He would, a couple of years after this film, he would actually retire from actually making films and retire from making appearances in anything.
He didn't really, when you think about it. I don't recall. We didn't make any cameos or anything.
No, he. I think when was asked why he, in his own words, he said that he was sick of being Cary Grant. He was going back to being Archibald Leach.
Oh, gotcha.
Because Cary Grant, what's quite interesting is that, and I think this is why what you saw on the screen of Cary Grant could do anything. He was an excellent comedian. If you saw films that he did in his younger days, like Bringing Up Baby, Arsenic and Old Lace, and then he did really great tearjerkers like Penny Serenade and things, and he did dramatic ones like Gunga Din and things like this.
I love Arsenic and Old Lace. That's like one of my favorite Cary Grant movies.
He's just fantastic, and he could do those pratfalls and all that sort of stuff. And he was really good with physical comedy. He was like one of the first actors to actually be able to do physical comedy, and at the same time do dramatic roles. I mean, okay, we had physical comedy with Charlie Chaplin and things like this, but could Charlie Chaplin do a dramatic role?
Yeah.
So he was able to do it all. And it's quite interesting that, I think after this point that Cary Grant got married and he had a daughter, and I think that he decided to become the family man. So he decided to retire from public life to start his private life, because he never really had a private life. And when you see documentaries about him, and there's an excellent documentary, if you buy the Blu-ray of North by Northwest, there's a fantastic 2-hour documentary about Cary Grant. And all his wives had the same thing, is that
all of his wives.
Well, he was married 3 times. His last wife was Diane Cannon.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And what they all said is that when he married Cary Grant, you never really knew the man. He kept everything very private. But when he had a daughter, all of a sudden he became himself for the first time.
It's interesting because that's also a true method actor. You kind of invoke such the character that you have to put you on the shelf for a while to stay into that character. So I'm sure he was very much a method actor.
And that guess what leads us to North by Northwest, because even though I did read the notes and it was supposed to be for Jimmy Stewart to begin with, this film is just so Cary Grant.
Totally.
nuance of this
Perfect for him.
is Cary Grant. You know, you got the best of everything going on in Cary, and the comedy. He's so good with the comedy because I mean, this movie is a funny script as well.
Yeah, it is.
It's funny. It's thrilling. It's kind of, and you know, and you also have a film that actually highlights Alfred Hitchcock's. What he's always been known for is all these supporting actors, these character actors, and this movie is full of character actors.
Yeah.
You know. And I mean, nothing's better than, you know, Miss Josephine Hutchinson, who plays Roger Thornhill's mom.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Jessie Royce Landis. Sorry, Clara Thornhill.
She was fantastic. Oh my God, she was so funny. I mean, when he did know how to carefully, strategically place characters in every movie. And I mean, it's just his mother, and she's like doubting him, and he's saying, "But they tried to kill me."
Well, but it's also, it kind of gives you, without saying anything, what type of man this guy is, because it's almost like you don't know really anything about Roger at all, other than he's being, you know, pursued by these guys, and it's a mistaken identity. What you get from the mother is like, oh, you know, here we go, boy who cried wolf again.
Yeah,
playboy. You know, not really good with money. Oh, he's getting into trouble again. So you know, how many times has he, when, you know,
so condescending.
Have you been drinking? And she just kind of looks at him like, again, like she gives him this mother, like, again, not a, you know, disappointed. No, it's like, here we go again.
But it also plays into the Alfred Hitchcock mother fixation he has in all his films. There's always that strange mother role.
He does. That is a running theme throughout just about every single film. I mean, after you watch them all, like we have, you do notice that he had this mommy thing going on.
My favorite thing with that too is when they are coming after the goons are coming after him, and he knows it, and they're in the hotel, and they get in the elevator with them.
Yeah.
And she's like, she gives him a look, and he keeps like it's them, and she's just like, what? And then he's like, it's them, and then she's like,
trying to kill my
are you
son?
trying to kill my son? I mean, it's just such a
you know, and I found another thing that's quite interesting about the film is that it's always on the move.
Yeah,
always
it always.
And even when, you know, it's kind of funny because even where it should be stationary, there's always some movement going on. Like when he gets taken to the house and he meets James Mason's character.
I love James Mason too. He plays an excellent villain.
But even at that point, is like when they're having the conversation, one of them's always moving.
Yeah, around the room, circling the room. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and if they're standing still and not, you know, sort of thing, then they're on something that's moving. They're on
a train. Be an exhausting director. I mean, literally an exhausting director.
I mean, that's a lot of staging. If you think about it, like you're having to stage, like Keith was saying, if it's something that's not moving, like a train, it's like the hotel room. When they come to the hotel room with him and the mother he's searching the room and he's walking around the room. He's talking to her. And so she's stationary, but he's not. He's going and doing that. Then it's get out of the room and now have to get out of here. And now I have to get out of the lobby and now I have to get in a car. And then they're in the car. Like, so everything is just constantly, the pacing of it's moving. Exactly. I think the most stationary you get is towards the end when it's Ava and the two guys that she's trying to, what's their names? Like that scene, that's probably the only scene where they're just sitting there and they're talking about things. But other than that, for the most part, everything is moving.
But at the same time, that during that scene, you talk about when he shows up at the house. And
so then he's the one who's moving. Then he's the one who's moving out and around.
And then when she's sitting there, then she's picking up the book and she's looking at the book or whatever she's doing. And then the people are moving in the background, so you see their feet moving. So it's kind of like, it's quite interesting to be able to, you know, I'm just trying to think of if there's any stationary. I mean, even in the beginning when he shows up, you know, he doesn't even sit down at the table when he first shows up, when the mistaken identity first starts.
Yeah.
He shows up, he's moving around a bit and then goes, oh, I have to go call my mother. Yeah. And then you have the guy moving, and then when he finally does sit down, then you have the guy moving around asking for the guy when he raises his hand to be able to send a telegram to his mom saying that, you know, about the opera that night. So
it's funny because the camera is what follows a moving object too, because they do that really good in the when he's at the United Nations building and he comes in. And so from where he leaves to come over, it's like he's talking to the woman, but then the camera follows over, leaves him behind, then follows over to the other receptionist, and then he walks over to the receptionist, and then the camera goes back to the stationary guy. So it's a lot of like volleying with the cameras of where something's stationary over here, but over here things are moving.
Which is even when they're trying to force him to drink alcohol, they're all ganging up on him. I was trying to figure out that scene. It's like, how do you dump alcohol without somebody regurgitating down? I mean, did you see the glass of alcohol? It was a glass, full-size glass of like Lipton iced tea from Texas. Like,
I think he drank it, but like I don't think because that would have killed him if they literally just poured it down his throat like alcohol. Like no.
I mean, it's quite interesting that this is a film about traveling and moving, and it's all done by filming of moving and traveling.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say that, I didn't ever actually take note of how long this film was until you said it, but it does not seem like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
No, because it's so fast. It's sort of like when you're at work and you're busy, and then you look up and you see the clock. It's like, oh wow, it's such and such a time. I watched it from beginning to end without even going to take a pee.
I think you know what I think it is that it's like one of these where you're trying to determine why there's a mistaken identity, and while you're in the process of trying to figure that out, he just keeps getting himself in deeper,
more and more trouble.
So it's like, there's first he's like driving intoxicated and they arrest him, and then when there's that, then he goes to the United Nations and he's trying to talk to someone he thinks he knows, and they gets killed, and then he grabs a knife like everyone really does back then in those days.
I know,
like,
you knew
let me take the knife out. Why did someone do that?
Like, why are you? That's what I was saying. I go, this dumbass is going to take the knife out of his back. Here we go.
But then that sets it ups the ante, right? So now he's on the run. So now, before he was on the run from these guys, now he's on the run from the law, so that's what keeps it'd be one thing if he was hiding out somewhere and you're hiding out and you're not really doing anything. It's sort of, that's where the pace starts to slow. But when you're constantly moving just to get away, then, yeah.
Another thing I quite like about it is the simple fact that it has that Alfred Hitchcock tells you everything. He tells you everything. But yet you're still surprised because, once he goes on the major run sort of thing, and then you have the government agency there, and they're talking about mistaken identity, but we can't step in and stuff like this, but we'll find a way to deal with it. And then next thing we know, we meet Eve Kendall, which is played by Eva Marie Saint.
Yeah,
and the whole time we're the viewer, and we're not quite sure what side she's playing on. We're thinking that she's batting for him, but then we think that she's working for the bad guys. And of course, spoiler alert, we find out that she's working for the good guys. But then we're quite shocked when we find out that she's working for the good guys in a weird way. Even though he's already told us an hour and a half before that she's working for the good guys.
Well, but the thing is, I feel like they the good guys because they're trying to obviously get the bad guys. They're getting the microfilm.
Bad guys,
but the fact that they're like, but this guy could be killed, and they're like, oh well, but we don't want to compromise our agent. What the hell?
But that's what I say. That's that's one of the glory things that Hitchcock he does is in every single one of his movies.
Yeah.
He gives you all the answers at the very beginning of it, and then when everything reveals itself at the end, you're always shocked and surprised.
But I don't think Eve. You don't realize Eve is who she is until later. I mean, I got it. I mean, I just was like, oh, the fact that she was so taken with him and the interest of him, I was like, oh.
It's quick.
Yeah, it was like that quick. Like, well, I mean, not that he's not the really dapper man and very attractive man, and she's an attractive woman, but I just felt like it was a little like, why are you helping someone who could be a criminal, right, or a murderer, not just a criminal, but a murderer, right?
Right.
He's so taken with him, unless she's just really twisted and she wants some little fun in her life, but she's really like, wow. Don't worry. I lied for you. They come on the train to get him, and she's just like, oh, I think he went that way. Like she deliberately lies for him. So immediately when she said that, I was like, I don't know. Like why are you getting involved? So there's a reason for the involvement. Speaking of involvement with the plane. So she sends him to go to this crossroads, right? It's like a crossroad to go talk to someone. Now, was a plane sent from the bad guys or the good guys? Because I took it as the good guys to stop him from like interfering.
I just found that if you're going to kill someone, that's quite an elaborate way of trying to kill someone with a crop dust. I don't know.
It's not like the guy who's like,
bullets,
well, that's
though.
awful strange. And he ain't even cropping any, it's not even like doing any crops. And I was like,
yeah, but it was shooting bullets. Okay. So they never did show, did they have like some kind of automatic repeating something or other shooting at him, or was it coming out of the plane?
It was coming out of the plane, but probably someone had a gun shooting down.
I mean, it's a bit like
protesters don't have repeating firearms.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminded me of Snoopy versus the Red Baron, isn't it? It's one of those
Yes,
kind of
exactly.
like, sort of thing. And
Maybe
I mean,
it was Snoopy. That's it. Maybe it was Snoopy trying to kill him, though. I just was wondering because it never was explained who that was. And we were assuming that it was the bad guys, like them. Like I just didn't get that.
Well, she has a conversation on the phone because before that, she gets him to the Chicago. She gets him, she makes a phone call, and then then it screens over the camera pans over to Martin Landau. Though I guess we're supposed to be under the assumption that they're having the conversation, or she could be discussing people back at the government office and Martin Landau having a different conversation with someone else. So but all I know is that because after she finishes that, and he's changed his clothes, and he does the shaving with a tiny razor.
Yeah, which was hysterical. That scene, I was like, "What's with the tiny?"
I don't even know a woman that has a razor that small. What kind of razor was that?
I think it's one of those travel razors that you tend to get out of the if you go to like
a kit, because it had the little razor, but it also had the little brush too. It was like a tiny little brush. Yeah,
because if you go to if you get and some of the like rest stops here, like when you're driving, you go to the rest stop, you go to the bathroom, then you get like this little kit for like truckers, and when you do, I put my. You know what you do, you get condoms or shaving kit.
it's like a little kit. Like you get them on planes, you get the little kits that they give you on planes.
The razor is like really small. And normally what happened is that there's normally like screws onto this like really small thing of shaving cream, which basically is just enough shaving cream just to barely cover your face.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you take it off, and then you kind of go like this. But yeah, it's kind of like the worst version of a Bic, but.
Yeah,
but it's some fantastic bit of comedy acting there from Cary Grant.
Yeah, that was a very good scene. Very entertaining.
I mean, I think it's probably smaller than what you would normally find. I would say is
definitely smaller than you normally. Women we got a lot of real estate we have to cover when we shave. That's all I'm saying. It's like that was a
no,
really
but I think
small
that's
razor.
like it was in her room. Now come to think of it, because it wasn't in.
It was in the men's bathroom.
It was in her bathroom.
I thought it was in her bathroom in the train.
No, it's in men's bathroom because he's next to the other guy who's shaving with a regular razor.
No, he takes it though. Yeah, he found the razor in her room because remember he went into the bathroom and she can't because he went in there to hide and the person came in and he's all like he's like this like what the hell is this?
Yeah, I guess I'm shaving with it.
I just think it was one of those little travel razor sort of thing. That's
but you could argue that on a train they don't know if it's going to be a man or a woman in the room, so they could just supply shaving a kit.
Well, I'm sure they do. If you were taking a train where it takes like over 2 days to get somewhere, they do have things. You got to pay handsomely for it, but they do have. I've never seen anything that small. That's why I thought it was so funny how he was doing it. It's just the looks Cary Grant gives when he's doing something. He just has that face. He could be very dapper, debonair, or whatever. But I mean, he's got that comical face too with those goofy looks. It's like.
Well, I think that's what's important with this is that the type of character he is in this is someone who is always sort of calm and reserved, even though he's in a constant chase. Whereas, like, I compare this to Vertigo, right? Like they're like constantly sweating, dying, like he's like enamored. He's just always reserved. Like, okay, what am I going to do now? What's next? Like, where am I going to go?
I mean, I guess, talking about, I think Eva Marie Saint is fantastic in this.
Yeah. Oh, she's stunning. She's so stunning, too, as an actress.
She's beautiful, too. Yeah, she's very talented, too.
But what I also quite liked about it, which is quite odd, is I think, you're going back to, why she went up to help Cary Grant out. I think that because Cary Grant is so extremely good looking, he is like, the man's man, best look.
Definitely.
And when you when you look at Cary Grant, he's almost like the prototype for Superman.
Yeah,
the face, the dark hair, and everything like this. And I mean, fantastic dresser. And I would sit there and say that if he came towards me and wanted some help, I probably would help him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't believable. I would say that it just caught me as like something's up here. You know, it gave me as something's up. You know.
But if you go back and you look at these guys, and like you said, fantastic dresser, with the way they dressed with the overcoats and the hat, it's just woof. Oh my God, I wish guys dressed like that still. And not put on rompers.
I mean, again, men and women, because the way she was dressed too was like very stylish and very classy, and you know.
Well, can you imagine if Jimmy Stewart played that, and then you look at that same.
It wouldn't be right.
Again, and you'd be like, "Oh, why is she doing that?" But Cary Grant, you kind of like give it. You're like, "Oh, it's Cary Grant, of course." You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have to say that there's so many fantastic set pieces. I mean, the drunk driving in the beginning.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was fantastic.
Or he's trying to look, and he's going like. He's just like going in and out, and he's going around these curves. It looked like he was on Mulholland Drive or something, for God's sake. He was just hitting almost just missing all the cars. You know, he comes to a full stop, and that's the only reason he got in an accident at all is because the police started chasing him.
No, the police I think were starting to chase him because he was swerving, you know, between traffic and stuff, and they just happened like he ran into the car and then they ran into him. So.
But I also think it's, you know, even though this is considered like Alfred Hitchcock's greatest hits, because like, you know, what Alfred Hitchcock was known for is like these are all the favorite bits that Alfred Hitchcock put into one film sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also say that about Cary Grant because there's so many parts in this. I've seen a lot of Cary Grant films. I'm quite a fan
so
of it.
have I love
and
it.
like that driving drunk sort of thing always reminds me of Topper. Do you ever see that?
I remember Topper. I love Topper.
Oh, you know, and that's one of Cary Grant's greatest roles as well. And that's like, you know, so you have that set piece, and then you got the set piece, you know, just even like the small stuff, like when they're like going through the train station and he's dressed up as the bellboy or what like that.
Yeah, he still looks good.
No, but it even looked like him, which was like great. I mean, they did a good job, you know, camouflaging, because, you know, sometimes when they play the whole incognito, like we were talking about with, what was the one where the woman dressed up to pretend to be someone else, where like aside from a pair of glasses and a really horrible wig, like she looked the same.
Yeah.
Was it Stage Fright?
Yeah, Stage Fright.
So like he looked different. Like he actually looked different and very, very handsome.
He's just a good looking man. I mean, I'm often wondering, it's like maybe I think Hollywood is so dry sometimes for material like this because they don't really pull it off like this anymore. And I'm wondering maybe if it's so entertaining, so comedic, yet I mean they stay on point and cover all these different facades they got to play in these movies. Is it because film was so much younger back then? Or is it, you know, maybe we've just seen it all? I mean, that's why they don't make them like they used to coin the cliche.
Well, I also think that things are a bit more controlled. So basically what they tend to do back in this day was they used, basically most films back in this day were basically felt like stage plays being turned on to
film. Yeah.
Because what you had is you normally had really strong scripts, and basically it was all about the acting because you didn't have a lot that you could do with special effects. Special effects they played a part, but they weren't part of the film. They didn't take control of the film. Nowadays, the special effects tend to control the film, and the writing goes behind the special effects. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think because even here, but then again, and we're a bit spoiled with Alfred Hitchcock. But I guess even if you look at like older films, like if you take Whatever Happened to Baby Jane or Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte or The Bad Seed that we've covered, and various other films, you know, from the 50s, 30s, and 40s, they all, if you notice, they always have like a really strong script, and it's all about it's about their relationships, and their relationships it's not so much of what they're thinking, it's more about what they're saying. And I think, you know, I think that's where Alfred Hitchcock, I think the reason why this works so well is because Alfred Hitchcock, you kind of got everything magnified, because it's not just what they're saying, but you're also he's giving you the mood, and he's giving you direction, and he's providing emotion through the camera lens here. And that's what we get with Alfred Hitchcock. And so I think that, you know, with Alfred Hitchcock, you always get that something extra that you would normally get from a Hollywood film.
Yeah.
He would give you the emotion and prospects. You know, for instance, you know, you can throw a bomb underneath two people talking. And this is what he said, that you can put a bomb underneath two people talking, and but there's a way that you can play this. And the thing is, because what you would play with this is that you would show the bomb, and then you get the people talking, and then you would keep cutting back to the bomb. And what's happening as an audience, you're building this dread and this anticipation to the point where you're just settling in it. Now the thing is, and then what you can do is you let the bomb go off, but you can't do that now, because the thing is, because you built this tension, if you do that, that's cheap. And and the audience gets angry with you. So now what you have to do is you build that tension up to such a point, and then you find a way to diffuse the bomb.
Yeah.
And this is the way that he operated his films, because he said that you can't set the bomb off.
I'd also say too, like with older films too, there is sort of when the actor knows, and they are trying to and now the main protagonist knows, and how that carries through. And then sometimes it's not like most modern films are about exposition, right? I'm going to tell you why I'm upset, and then you're going to respond to me and why I'm upset. And so sometimes it's just a look. Sometimes it's the actions of the actor. So it's really, I think it's sort of lazy writing, unfortunately, when nowadays most films, when you spend most of the time between dialogue and telling why something is the way it is, as opposed to showing the audience the way it is, right? Through actions, like the bomb ticking underneath the table, that's just, it's not, there's a bomb under the table. What should we do about the bomb under the table? I don't know. It's ticking down. Let's talk about the bomb under the table. Why don't, all of that takes away from that, right? Right. You could have the bomb under the table ticking, and then once it's close to say 5, the person goes, we need to move now, right? And then that's it sets, we got to move, I think it's just, unfortunately, it's sad to say most films have a lot of lazy writing, and when it comes to exposition and being able to show, not tell me what's going on.
I also think that as a society, we're not as repressed either. We can tell people what we think now. And I think back then, you had society etiquette that you dealt with, and you didn't tell people exactly what you felt. You can relay how you felt, but you didn't actually use those words. You would, you had to be more clever, because, everyone, and maybe it's a lesson that we can learn for today, but everyone respected everyone else, and it doesn't matter. You just respected everyone else. And with respect, you had to compromise your actions around them. You could let people know what your actions were, but you had to be a bit clever about how you're going to voice that. You couldn't just yell at someone and tell them they're an idiot.
Yeah.
You had to find your way around it, because you had to be polite. It was a polite society. And I guess today, because you don't have that, and that changed in the 70s, when things became more gritty and stuff like this. So therefore, you now tell people exactly what you think. So it basically, that's probably the reason why films are like they are now, because, you don't need to skirt around those pleasantries anymore, because you don't need to be pleasant to people anymore.
Well, like you said, though, too, you're saying that maybe there's less script and more special effects, like Jurassic Park. The stars are the dinosaurs, so to speak. Yeah. And so there's a whole lot of stuff that there's not a script probably is not that big for reading lines when you got the dinosaurs like T-Rex or, Gallimimus or whoever is stealing the show at the moment.
I mean, we do get films today that do have great scripts to them, but they are very far in between. I mean, if you look at things like Hereditary or Midsummer, I mean, that's all, that's basically a hark back to the early days where it's all based on script and the mood of what the camera is telling you.
Yeah.
The Silver Lining Playbook is another one that's it's all about what they're not telling you. That's what the whole movie's about.
Yeah.
And you do get them. They're just very far in between. Where I think in this time, I think every film did this.
I mean, the one that I was just talking about that I saw after the wedding, it's heavily, heavily, heavily in that sort of era of you're trying to figure out what's going on because you see the tension of the looks, but you don't know what's going on and nothing's being said. And it's a lot of the interaction that's happening between the main characters that you're waiting for this bomb to drop because you just know the daggers. One of the characters throwing daggers at this person. The other one who you think is it's basically like this woman's brought into a scenario where it's her husband and they're having a wedding for their daughter. This woman's brought into this situation where she knows a husband, and she knows a husband, and it's not good because just the way she looks at him, it's like daggers, right? So then she's looking at the husband, then she's looking at this woman who brought her to this situation, like, well, what do you know? Why did you bring me here? And there's just a lot of like tension that builds for a good probably like 15, 20 minutes. And you're just like, oh my God, what is happening? You know, and it's so good because most films, it's like, you know, the character would look at this person, give him a dirty look, and then someone would come over and be like, what's wrong? Oh, I know that bitch, and she did, and now you tell, and so immediately you now know, okay, that's why she's mad at this woman, right? And then it's like, then there's a cat and mouse that kind of go back and forth, but that tension, the building of tension when you're just not in the know, it's such a wonderful feeling because once you do, it's such a great payoff. It's like, and it is a good payoff. In this film, I was like, oh,
yeah.
I mean, we do have directors today who do still play this kind of card. Todd Haynes is probably the best one. He did Far From Home. He does all those kind of films that are basically, you know, it is Swoon, you know, what else? Oh, Carroll, I'm Not There, Wonderstruck, Dry Run is the new film he's coming out. But he plays this whole thing. It's all about the script. It's all about what's not being said. It's all about, you know, it's not what's being said, it's what's not being said that becomes the main focus. I think, you know, I don't know. I'd sit there and say that. I mean, North by Northwest. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint a favorite part of this film at all. I mean, I think
like the crop dusting scene, and I just thought I loved that. I think that was shot in Bakersfield, California, if I'm not mistaken.
But there's just so many iconic things in this film. I mean, you know, you got United Nations is iconic. You have the crop duster is iconic. You have the I think even the elevator scene, which is quite short, is iconic.
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore is another.
The Mount Rushmore scene is one of the most iconic to me.
But I mean, everything in this film is like kind of iconic. It's kind of bizarre to have so many iconic moments in one film. You know, normally it's like most films that you might get one iconic moment. It's like, you know, Jaws is always going to be, you know, either the opening or the end of, you know, or the shark pops up, or, you know, or most modern films or even older films, they have like one iconic scene, where this has like numerous iconic scenes that, you know, the crop duster and the Mount Rushmore are two of the biggest scenes ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they didn't really film on Mount Rushmore though. That was on a set, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a set.
They had to make their own set because he pissed off the Department of the Interior because he was not being, you know, treating it like a sanctified monument.
Well, I mean, especially if your scene is you're crawling all over it. Yeah, of course you're gonna be like, no, it's fine if you want to do it above and we can make it look like it's just a surface, but it's like literally to get away, they're crawling up Washington's face and down Lincoln's face. Like it's all over it.
It would have been really dangerous for actors to do that anyway. So they had to have done it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, what's quite interesting is the person who did the map paintings for this also did High Anxiety with Mel Brooks. He played the father in the Mel Brooks one.
I do have to say, part of the High Anxiety, which is hysterical, is the scene where they're hanging off and they're just kind of like having a conversation in this film was very High Anxiety. Because you'd be like, I'm sorry, if you're hanging there, you're not going to be like, okay, so, hey, Vicky, and then, yeah, you know, like, they're just literally, like, having a conversation. I'd be like, oh, God, get me up out of here.
It's so easy to hang on.
Yeah, they're just like, hanging out, you know.
If I was hanging on, I'd be tripping balls. I'd be crying. I'd be begging. I'd be praying to God, saying I would never sin again, ever again in my life.
I'm going to die this way. I'm going to die on a President's Monument.
You know, another thing I found quite weird also with Alfred Hitchcock, because I know that, you know, we'll discuss this probably more in our season 2 finale, but I got all the Alfred Hitchcocks in Blu-ray with Alfred Hitchcock, and when I get them in Blu-ray, and when you get older films in Blu-ray, sometimes they suffer. Sometimes it's not good to see some films that clear. And I have to say that this film doesn't suffer from seeing that film clear.
No.
I mean, you don't see, like The Wizard of Oz is very, very clear on Blu-ray, and there are a couple scenes there where you can actually probably see a couple special effects that are not so special when they're
like gone wrong.
Yeah, kind of like that. But this is like it's like you don't even notice it. It's quite weird. I mean, one of the worst films on Blu-ray is Jason and the Argonauts. But on Blu-ray, it's like, this is too clear. It's actually a bit better if it's not as clear. And that's what I think was quite excellent about, even if you look at the backgrounds and the scenery and, you know, the map paintings, and whether it's from Vertigo or Marnie and this film here, the matte paintings and everything all look natural. It all looks like it's all done on location, which is one of the most bizarre things ever.
Yeah, that's what I said. They do such a great job in. You usually can tell when something's a set and when something's not a set. So you're kind of like, maybe the only scene that I would say, oh, wow, this really looks like a set is the inside of the United Nations. So that the office, you could tell that's a set. But for the most part, everything else seems very non-set. Like, when when he gets kidnapped and is brought to that fabulous mansion, I was like, oh, this is like, I wonder if they're actually inside filming it or if it is,
Exactly. I was trying to figure that out. Is this real?
Yeah.
And then the one, speaking of iconic, I was going to ask you guys, they said that Hitchcock, well, he's got his cameo appearance where he's trying to get on the bus and before it boards, the door is closing, but they're also trying to say, he doesn't specify that there's a female train passenger. A lot of people thought that Hitchcock in drag.
Yeah, it's not though.
Oh, it's not, because I was like,
which would be awesome. I think he needed to up his ante, and he probably needed to do a little bit of a Stan Lee thing and started to become the actual character. He was just always Hitchcock. He just the style and dress, he always looked.
So you don't think it was him because they didn't ever specify?
No, you're talking about around the 44 minute mark.
44-minute mark.
They thought it was him in drag. It was basically a woman in a turquoise dress on the train.
Right.
It was actually played by an actress called Jocelyn Fax.
Okay.
Who actually appeared in Rear Window as one of the neighbors. But she's also done quite a few episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which I feel kind of sad that people think that this woman looked like Alfred Hitchcock in drag.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be noticeable, I mean, it's like someone thinking you're Liza Minnelli. I mean, the
figure. Yeah, so it's kind of like, ooh.
Well, it was a point that came up when you're doing your research for these movies. I was going to ask you guys, was it him?
Yeah, no, it came up on mine as well. And then when I got a bit further, it was mentioned in this documentary. So it's like, so I made notes of that. It's like,
well, he was probably much bigger than this woman anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
she's got anything going for her, at least now that she's lost all indignity.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the film that didn't work for either one of you?
No.
Really? I do say that though it was fast. I mean, I do say it did feel a little long to me, like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then the fact that they wanted him to cut 15 minutes. I was trying to. I can't
imagine it being longer.
Yeah, no, but I thought to myself, like, well, I don't know how you would cut 15 minutes because even though it felt longer, I think it felt longer just because trying to get to location is what felt longer. So then I don't know how you cut that. Like, how do you cut?
You can't cut
travel,
the train.
Right? You can't.
You can't cut the crop duster scene. You just can't with a lot.
Yeah.
You can't cut the UN scene. I mean, there's just so many.
Yeah, it's very episodic as well, isn't it? It goes from episode to episode to episode to episode. There's basically a lot of small episodes to make one large film. Yeah, I mean, I can't find one thing to fault about this film whatsoever. So
yeah,
I mean,
I love that he ties in multiple genres. He ties in the suspense. He ties in the love story. You know, there's a whimsical, witty humor, comedy in it. So it's like he does such a great job in not making a Bond film, right? Which is like chase, fight, shoot. You know, it's not like that type of thing. There is a love story that's in there. There is the comedy of trying to get out of the situations. Because at one point, like the scene at the art house and then doing the auction house and trying to like, that was a very funny scene because you're like, what is he doing? And like he kept going backwards instead of forward. They're like, you know, we have 1,000 over here, and he's like 900.
Oh, I know that the auction scene was great. That was fantastic.
But I love that they cut the suspense because you know something's happening and what's going on, and then he's in this situation where he's like, oh, here I am again, where they could get me, but how do I get myself out of the situation? And it's brilliant. It's like it's actually really brilliant.
Arrested.
Yeah, he gets himself arrested.
$1,500.
And he's like $9, and they all start laughing, and they're like, "Get him out of here!" You know, it's like, oh, that's so good.
But even the person we didn't mention, and he probably is totally overlooked here, is James Mason part as Philip Van Damme. He plays the most excellent villain from this all the way to Salem's Lot. You know.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Even Martin Landau's brilliant in this. He looked better when he got older, but he's
yeah.
But I think, you know, I think it also has those weird punchlines in it because it's like, you know, like he gets drunk. The police take him in. He gives his story about, that he's been kidnapped.
Right.
Trying to be killed. So they take him back to the house. And then, of course, it all comes back that he looks like that he's fabricated the whole story. And then they're leaving. He's going, well, no one believes me. And then the mom goes, oh, just pay the $2.
Yeah.
Really? You're going to do all that? It's only $2? Really?
Yeah. She's like, oh, just pay him the $2.
Back then is $2. It's like a $20,000 mistake in Texas now.
I mean, the first time I saw this movie, I basically, in the 80s, what they did was they cleaned up all these Alfred Hitchcock films and they re-released them at the multiplexes. So I actually saw Rear Window and I saw this like the following week at the Cineplex. And I had to sit there and say that when I did see this, it's like everyone just so much enjoyed it. It was sold out. It was really hard to get tickets to see this cleaned up version. And when I saw it here, it played for 3 months at the multiplex. So... And I went back and saw it twice. And that's the first time I've seen the movie. And ever since then, I had to sit there and say, this is probably one of my Alfred Hitchcock favorites.
Yeah, it's celebrating this year. It's celebrating his 50th, right? 50th, so I'm sure they're going to re-release it into theaters. I'm going to look into that here in New York because I'm sure they will at ISC or one of them.
You've got so many fantastic theaters in New York City to choose from. Definitely the theater capital of the world.
Because this would actually be a great one to actually see in a theater. Like, I think that's, to me, unfortunately, it's like when you're at home, you don't get the very huge cinematicness of it all that you can, sit in a theater and you get the surround sound and all that. Like, it's, I think it's actually
that's right. That'd be, I'd love to see this.
And like IMAX. This was filmed in VistaVision as well. So it's like
VistaVision.
Big screen. I would actually like to see this in the IMAX. That would be quite good as well.
That's what I was just saying. I'd love to see it in IMAX.
Because I saw Fantasia at the IMAX when they did it with a live orchestra. That was quite cool.
Oh, that
would be really great.
And in 3D, which is even better.
I mean, so this was 2 years ago at the Philharmonic. They did Hitchcock and they did a lot of his composery, like a lot of the composers. They talk about how he picked the composers for his films and they talk about each of the films they did, but they think they did like 9 films. And it's just such a different experience when you're with the live orchestra. You're sitting there watching them play or watching the film, and then they do snippets of the scenes, and they did this one with the plane and the sound and everything, and you're just like it's just a completely different experience.
There was one little fact that kind of jumped out at me that Hitchcock, because he was being sneaky in this movie too, and he wanted to get he wasn't allowed to film at the New York headquarters, and so he wasn't even allowed to film in the plaza. And so what he did was he got they call it a nondescript vehicle and filmed in secret from across the street.
That's hysterical.
So, I mean, it's just stuff like that kind of adds to the movie. It's like, oh, wow, he wasn't supposed to be doing this when he filmed.
But by the way, I feel like he like from when we were talking about the last film, Strangers on a Train, him going to... He has this ability to like kind of be the characters that he's writing, because like the incognito, pretending to be a persona of someone else to get the rights to a film, to doing this, like I'm going to get the shot no matter what. I'm going to, like hire a car and hide,
But it really was his signature, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably what makes Alfred Hitchcock so fantastic, because he has made a couple bad films.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Jamaica Inn, which is like, I mean, it takes.
You're making me crazy.
It takes. I mean, even the one he did with Julie Andrews called Torn Curtain with Paul Newman. I mean, that's not the greatest, but
yeah.
But there is always something of interest to see in them, though. So and I think that when you look at Alfred Hitchcock's whole career and you see how much he did right and how many of his films are excellent. And if we look at the ones that are not great, you're only looking at about 5 or 6. And he made like 80 films.
Yeah.
I even have this collection of silent films upstairs that he made when he was here in England, and they're just fantastic as well.
Oh wow!
Well, we're covering a remake of one of his films, The Lodger, which we're doing in 1946.
Right.
But that's actually based on his silent film that he did in 1926.
I love that movie.
That's crazy. Wow.
But so Vicky, do you want to give us your final thoughts on North by Northwest?
Final thoughts on it, as I thought that it's one of those movies that can translate into every decade. A lot of you younger listeners probably haven't seen too much Hitchcock because you guys are got all these great movies with the special effects. But I mean, if you really want to see something that I wouldn't call it iconic, but I mean, I think people would actually love to watch it if they just started watching these. Again, like I said, I wasn't that interested in Hitchcock when I was younger, but now that I'm older, it's just like, why wasn't I interested in this back then? Because these are really great movies, and they could be satire, they could be comedy, they could be serious, they could be murderous. I mean, this movie's got it all, and I mean, especially Cary Grant just pulled this off beautifully. Nobody else could have done Cary Grant in this movie, so I give it major thumbs up.
And what about yourself, John? What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are: I'm actually going to quote London Time Out magazine. 50 years on, you could say that Hitchcock's sleek, weary, paranoid thriller caught on the zeitgeist perfectly. Cold War shadiness, secret agent of power, urban modernism, the ant-like bluster of the city of life, and a hint of dread behind the sharp suits of influence. And I think it's just such a wonderful film. I love that we pursued Hitchcock this season. So thank you, Keith, for
it has been
Hitchcock.
fantastic.
It was
Seriously.
the perfect pinnacle end of the season for this because it's a perfect Hitchcock film. So anyone wants to raise the bar high, if you're starting to watch Hitchcock, watch this because it definitely sets the bar really high.
It does.
I think that if you want a film to amplify what an Alfred Hitchcock film is, I think North by Northwest is probably the film that you should watch, and pretty much it'll give you how all his films will play out, because it is. And I think that when it's known as it's like a greatest hits of Alfred Hitchcock films all put together in one film, I think you get all that. You get your suspense, you get your comedy, you got your thrill ride, you got your fantastic shots, you have your fantastic script, you got fantastic performances, you also have fantastic supporting characters, which are fantastic in their own right. You have your classic villains. And I guess you can also see where this could have actually led off to like James Bond films and the big blockbuster films of the time and stuff like this. Because this was just before Hollywood system started to go down after this.
Right.
After this, it was taking a big change, and then we got these great big Hollywood films like Lawrence of Arabia and these great big overblown.
Yeah, the epic kind of movies started.
Yeah.
The song.
And I have to there say that all those epic films, so I do admire them, and whether it was Mary Poppins, Sound of Music, or all the other ones that came out at that time, I've never been able to sit through all of them because I always fall asleep in the middle of them and wake up somewhere towards the end. It's like Mary Poppins. I've never seen all of Mary Poppins ever. I fall asleep after
Mary Poppins is great.
Well, the new one, you fall asleep a little bit too, because there's a couple moments you're like, oh god, this is dragging on.
I know, but I loved it.
I watch up into supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and then I wake up at Feed the Birds every single time.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Same thing with Chi Chi Bang Bang. It's like I fall asleep and I wake up at the shower curtain.
Well, her nanny duties are doing well because she puts you to sleep.
Yeah.
And the same, I can say that same thing about Dr. Zhivago. I always fall asleep at the same point.
When he's traveling across whatever, and that music is following him across Siberia. That's when I start falling asleep.
Yeah.
Dr. Zhivago.
But here we got a film that's almost the same length as one of those films, and I stay awake. I never fall asleep during this film, and I have to keep my attention.
Going on.
And it's one of those things that if I'm flipping through the channels, and the thing is, because this is an MGM film, which was owned by Turner, which is part of TNT, this is probably the only Alfred Hitchcock film that will appear on that channel because it's the only MGM film. And this does appear on there. So if I'm flipping through the channels and it just comes on, I just find myself watching it each and every time. And when I was sitting here watching it, Isaac was doing his homework and stuff like this, and he got to the point where he couldn't do his homework and he just had to watch it. And it does draw you in. So I think this is the perfect Alfred Hitchcock film. It's kind of sad because this is our last Alfred Hitchcock film.
Yeah,
I know.
Our new endeavor season 2, but yeah, it's one of my favorites. I got so many favorites by him, but this does tick all the boxes for me.
Yes, it does.
It's been quite an epic journey exploring the ins and outs of Hitchcock this season, like a boy who just loved his mother to death, a man in a frenzy, a woman who had birds on the brain. There are also things that lurk in the shadow, even doubt. Stories of ladies vanishing, caught in a vertigo. I think her name was Marnie, or maybe it was Rebecca. Hitchcock had a way of tying the characters together and sometimes even setting them adrift on her lifeboat. He had cameos in all of his films, so he definitely wasn't afraid of stage fright. So the next time you are stuck at home, staring out of your rear window, consider instead putting on a Hitchcock film. You never know what type of stranger you might meet on a train heading north by northwest. Speaking of heading, why not head on over to our website at llpodcast.com, where you'll find all of our social and podcast platforms, check out our past episodes, become a patron, as well as read our reviews of books to screen and everything in between. For our next podcast, we will be continuing to explore the Dark Shadow series. We are also gearing up to do our Season 2 review, where we will be discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly of this past season, as well as give our listeners a taste of what's to come for Season 3. Until then, thank you for downloading, liking, and sharing the Literary License Podcast. Bye, folks.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Sam. Hey, wait a minute. What's that supposed to be?
Car's waiting outside. You will walk between us, saying nothing.
What are you talking about?
Let's go.
Let's go where? Who are you?
Mere errand boys carrying concealed weapons. His is pointed at your heart. So please, no errors of judgment, I beg of you.
Oh, come on, fellas. What is this, a joke or something?
Yes, a joke. We will laugh in the car. Come.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
I'm running from wicked Babylon, wicked Babylon, wicked Babylon, wicked Babylon. Oh, yes, I'm running for my life. Yes, I'm running for my life. If anyone asks me, what is the matter with you, Papa Lucci? Just tell them I'm saved, sanctified, got your enemy heart, and I'm running for my life. Yeah. I am sick and tired of staying down here. Yeah. So much sorrow and pain, so much despair, and everywhere I turn, it's terror and fear. Terror, and that is why I'm running for my life. I'm running for my life. If anyone asks me, what's the matter with you, Papa Lucci? Just tell them I'm safe, sanctified, got your enemy heart, and I'm running for my life. Yes, I'm running for my life. Yes, I'm running for my life. People want to get me down, for what reason? I don't know. For every good seed that I've sown, there's always someone trying to root it out of ground. That's why I'm running for my life. Yes, I'm running for my life. If anyone asks me, what's the matter with you, Papa Lucci? Just tell them I'm safe, sanctified, got your enemy heart, and I'm running for my life. Yes, I'm running for my life.
You're supposed to be meeting someone here.
Waiting for the bus. Due any minute. Some of them crop duster pilots get rich. They live long enough.
Yeah. Then your name isn't Kaplan.
Can't say it is, 'cause it ain't. Here she comes, right on time. That's funny.
What?
That plane's dusting crops where there ain't no crops.